Good morning or good afternoon when this goes out. Thank you for watching. I hope everyone's well today. If you find value in this video, consider liking and subscribing. It does help the channel out today. There's been rumblings and there's been rumours lately that Trump is planning to take down the EU. I'm here for it. If that's the case, I'm here for it, and it can only be a good thing for the European continent. The unelected leaders of the European Union have for too long ignored the democratic mandate handed to them by the people of Europe, and that's what I want to get into today. So there was a leaked report from the Trump administration, which I'm going to get into some of the points that were made in the report. Let's just have a look now. Promoting European greatness. American officials have become used to thinking the European problems in terms of insufficient military spending and economic stagnation. But the truth is, Europe's problems go even deeper. Continental Europe has been losing its share of global GDP, down from 25% in 1990 to 14% today, partly owing to national and transnational regulations that undermine creativity and industriousness. Well, we all know this. If you look at the graphs and the figures, it's pretty clear. America is continuing to grow. The European continent is way behind, and so is the United Kingdom. So that's nothing to write home about, really. However, it begs the question, the richer countries, the Western countries that are left in the European Union, as always, have been propping up the weaker, the other, well, I'd say the majority of the European Union, which don't actually pay their way. They're actually net beneficiaries, and the Western European countries prop them up. So let's just have a look at this now. The only countries that contribute, or net contributors, are the biggies at the top: Germany, France, Netherlands, Italy. And then the smaller players, Sweden, Denmark, Austria, Finland, and the Republic of Ireland. Everybody else in the European Union, every other country, are all drains on the European Union. And not just that, many of the poorer people go to the richer countries, so there's never been any genuine convergence. Overregulation stifles innovation. This is clear. What's also clear is that Britain's not taken advantage of any of the economic opportunities since Brexit because we are still shackled to the EU regulation playbook. And then we get onto this here. This one's quite interesting as well. Let's have a look now. The leaked documents show the US wants to pull 4 countries out of the European Union to make Europe as part of the Make Europe Great Again strategy. This is courtesy of the Daily Mail. The countries are Italy, Maloney, no surprises there. Poland and Hungary, no surprises there, and no surprises for Austria. What this actually does, if he successfully gets them to withdraw for the European Union, the eastern flank of Hungary and Poland can sort of stop a lot of migrants coming in that way, and Austria and Italy on the southern flank can take a lot of migrants and stop a lot of migrants coming in there. We already know that Greece is stopping migrants coming in from sucking the wealth from the continent down south from Africa, so all of this is good. This is quite funny though. This clip is quite funny. We'll look at this now. This is what's going on the continent.
European leaders in favor of a restrictive migration policy are gathering in Budapest today for a meeting of minds. It follows yesterday's vote in Hungary to stop Soros. That's a series of laws that criminalize any individual or group who help asylum seekers, including NGOs.
That's brilliant. Hungary are passing laws and the bill, the Stop Soros laws, and it criminalises literally anybody from the human rights lobby, the NGOs, anybody like that goes anyway to aiding, abetting and facilitating the dinghy divers coming into the European continent, criminalises them. That's great. This can only be a good thing. And this is why Trump wants Hungary, Poland and Austria and Italy out of the EU to make this plan happen more effectively, in my view.
Well, the move defies the EU and human rights groups. Amongst those at the meeting will be Austrian Chancellor Sebastian Kurz, an immigration hardliner, as well as Hungarian leader Viktor Orban. And MPs also passed an amendment saying, and quote, alien population cannot settle in Hungary, outlawing EU attempts to relocate asylum seekers from Italy and Greece. Well, joining us from Paris now is Dutch journalist Stefan de Vries. Stefan, this is again another complicated topic. Why is there so much support on tightening restrictions on asylum in Hungary?
Well, Viktor Orban sees himself as the defender of Christian Europe, as the protector, as a perceived Muslim invasion. And this...
Not perceived. It is happening. We can see it. The figures prove it's happening. It's not perceived. It's very real.
Rhetoric brought him a crushing victory in the last elections in April. He won a two-thirds majority in the parliament. And, well, we've seen that in other countries as well. Being tough on immigration attracts voters. We've seen it in Italy, in Austria and other EU member states. And the Stop Soros campaign slogan was a very popular one.
So we'll leave that one there. It goes on and on, but you pretty much get the gist. That's only half the story. A lot of countries in the European Union and former countries like the United Kingdom don't really pay the way in NATO. Since World War II, the European continent is dependent on the United States for support, essentially, to keep the peace in Europe. And not just that, if you look at the information here I'm going to bring up now, I'm going to read this out. He talks about, the report talks about civilization collapse in Europe. So we're going to read this first of all. Let's just have a look now. But economic decline is eclipsed by the real and more stark prospect of civilizational erasure. The large issues faced in Europe include activities of the European Union and other transnational bodies that undermine political liberty and sovereignty. Migration policies that are transforming the continent and creating strife, censorship of free speech, and suppression of political opposition, creating birth rates and the loss of national identities and self-confidence. Should present friends continue, the continent will be unrecognisable in 20 years or less. This is the bigger issue. If the United States and the Trump administration is actually fearful of if the European continent and the civilizational erasure, what happens when they remove themselves from NATO? What happens at that point? Our defence spending in the United Kingdom is not going up. Look at the players in NATO. These are all the countries that do not meet the 2% payments to NATO that are needed. All of these countries here. And then you have the countries that actually do. These are the countries that actually do. But the lion's share of the spending in NATO is obviously 2% of GDP. The lion's share, with America being the largest country, does come from the United States. What happens at that point? It seems that the policymakers, both in the United Kingdom and the broader European continent, are more interested in policing dissent than actually making any meaningful changes to government policy, either nationally or supranationally, to make the quality of life better for the indigenous European populations. This is the concern. We are on our arses, both politically and financially, and the only way you can get out of it is to tax less, deregulate, and go for growth, and cap migration to a reasonable figure. These are just my thoughts. As always, your mileage may vary. Consider liking and subscribing, but you let me know. I think personally Trump is playing for time. He knows the change needs to come from within the European continent, because you can't have another American intervention, especially one with supposed allies like Europe. So he's playing for time because the rhetoric is getting where it needs to be, both in the United Kingdom and the broader continent. And if Italy, Austria, Hungary and Poland do withdraw from the European Union, it may focus minds. I appreciate your time today. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.